For much of the 20th century, Ireland was economically stagnant, earning the unfortunate nickname the sick man of Europe. The country struggled with high unemployment, widespread poverty, and a lack of industrial development. Opportunities were scarce, and for generations young Irish men and women saw emigration as their only hope for a better life. Families were separated as loved ones left for America, Britain, or Australia, seeking work and stability that Ireland simply could not provide. The streets of Dublin and rural towns alike bore the marks of economic hardship, with shuttered shops and idle factories serving as daily reminders of the nation's struggles. But in the 1990s, a remarkable transformation began to take shape. Strategic government policies focused on education, innovation, and attracting investment. Ireland's young, well-educated workforce became a key asset, and the country's entry into the European Union opened doors to new markets and funding. Suddenly, Dublin was alive with construction cranes, and a new sense of optimism filled the air. Young professionals found opportunities at home, and the nation's outlook shifted from despair to hope. Ireland actively courted foreign investment, moving away from decades of protectionism and isolation. The government introduced business-friendly policies, streamlined regulations, and offered incentives to multinational corporations. Global giants in technology, pharmaceuticals, and finance set up operations in Ireland, drawn by its skilled workforce and access to the European market. New industrial parks sprang up, and partnerships between Irish officials and international business leaders flourished. This period of rapid economic expansion became known as the Celtic Tiger. The term captured the energy and speed of Ireland's transformation, as the economy grew at an astonishing average rate of 9.4% per year. Newspapers celebrated the boom, and economists marveled at the country's turnaround. The skyline of Dublin changed almost overnight, with new buildings and infrastructure reflecting newfound prosperity. Central to this success was Ireland's ability to leverage its EU membership and offer some of the lowest corporate tax rates in Europe. These policies made the country an attractive destination for international companies looking for a gateway to the European market. The Docklands in Dublin became a symbol of this new era, filled with modern offices and global brands. Irish delegations in Brussels worked tirelessly to secure funding and partnerships, while tax incentives drew in waves of foreign direct investment. By the early 2000s, Ireland had become a critical node in the global economy. Its ports bustled with international trade, and its financial centres attracted banks from around the world. Through a combination of strategic policy, a skilled and adaptable workforce, and a bit of luck, Ireland had rewritten its destiny, emerging from decades of hardship to become the Celtic Tiger, a symbol of economic resilience and transformation. If you found this story of Ireland's transformation interesting, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What surprised you most about Ireland's economic journey? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more deep dives like this. Your engagement helps us reach more viewers and keeps the conversation going. Ireland's famously low corporate tax rate of 12.5% has become a defining feature of its economic landscape. This policy, introduced in the late 1990s, was a bold move designed to transform the country's fortunes and attract global business. By offering one of the most competitive tax environments in Europe, Ireland positioned itself as a magnet for international investment. The low tax rate is central to Ireland's economic identity, drawing in multinational corporations from around the world. Major players in technology, pharmaceuticals, and finance have chosen Ireland as their European base, bringing with them capital, expertise, and global connections. This strategy helped Ireland overcome the traditional disadvantages of a small domestic market and its geographical isolation on the edge of Europe. By leveraging its EU membership and English-speaking workforce, Ireland became a gateway for companies seeking access to the European market. US tech and pharmaceutical giants, such as Google, Facebook, and Pfizer, found Ireland to be an ideal location for their European operations. The favourable tax regime, combined with a skilled workforce and stable political environment, made Ireland a top choice for global expansion. This created a symbiotic relationship. Corporations benefited from significant tax advantages and access to the EU, while Ireland gained thousands of high-quality jobs, increased tax revenue, and a boost to its international reputation. The pharmaceutical sector in particular became a pillar of the Irish economy. State-of-the-art factories and research centers sprang up across the country, providing employment and fostering innovation. Companies like Pfizer and Merck established major manufacturing plants, contributing to a surge in corporate tax receipts. These funds played a crucial role in supporting Ireland's economic growth. The increased tax revenue allowed the government to invest in public services and infrastructure, improving transport, healthcare, and education for Irish citizens. However, this remarkable success also created a dependency on foreign multinationals. Ireland's prosperity became closely tied to the fortunes of these global giants, making the economy vulnerable to changes in international tax policy or corporate strategies. Today, Ireland stands as a corporate tax superpower, admired for its economic transformation, but also facing questions about long-term sustainability and resilience in a rapidly changing global landscape. The relationship between Ireland and US multinationals is one of the defining features of the modern Irish economy. Over the past few decades, Ireland has transformed itself from a largely agricultural society into a global hub for technology, pharmaceuticals, and finance, thanks in large part to the presence of American companies. This partnership is crucial to Ireland's economic success. The influx of US investment has fueled job creation, urban development, and a vibrant business culture that has reshaped Irish cities and towns. Today, US firms dominate the landscape, employing around 15% of the Irish workforce, either directly in their offices and factories, or indirectly through suppliers and service providers. These jobs are often high-skilled and high-paying, offering opportunities that have helped stem emigration and attract talent from abroad. The impact goes beyond employment. Corporate tax revenue in Ireland is highly concentrated, with just 10 multinationals responsible for a staggering 60% of all corporate tax receipts. This has allowed the government to fund public services and infrastructure, but it also means that Ireland's finances are heavily dependent on the fortunes of a handful of global giants. This creates a significant vulnerability. If even one major company were to leave or downsize, the ripple effects could be felt across the economy, from lost tax revenue to rising unemployment and reduced consumer spending. Ireland also enjoys a massive trade surplus with the United States, largely driven by pharmaceutical and technology exports. These exports have helped Ireland weather global economic storms and maintain a strong balance of payments. For years, this arrangement has been mutually beneficial. US companies have found a welcoming environment, skilled workforce, and favorable tax regime, while Ireland has reaped the rewards of investment and global integration. However, this close relationship is now coming under increasing scrutiny. In Washington, some politicians and policymakers view Ireland's economic model as a vehicle for tax avoidance by American corporations. They argue that profits generated in the US are being shifted to Ireland to take advantage of lower tax rates, depriving the US Treasury of billions in revenue. The perception is that Ireland is siphoning off US tax revenue, and this has led to calls for tougher regulations, new international tax rules, and even the threat of punitive measures. The risk of confrontation between the two countries is real, and the stakes are high for both sides. As Ireland's economic success story is increasingly seen as a threat by some in Washington, Irish policymakers are under pressure to defend their model while also preparing for possible changes in the global tax landscape. The relationship between Ireland and US multinationals now stands at a crossroads. Decisions made in the coming years could dramatically reshape the Irish economy, for better or worse. Ireland's reliance on US firms is both a remarkable strength and a potential Achilles heel. The prosperity of recent decades has been built on this foundation, but it also leaves Ireland exposed to external shocks and policy shifts beyond its control. As global attitudes toward corporate taxation evolve and the US reconsiders its approach, the future of this unique relationship is uncertain. What happens next will have profound implications for Ireland's economy, its people, and its place in the world. In 2025, a new US-EU trade deal introduced a sweeping 15% tariff on EU goods, including pharmaceuticals, a sector that accounts for over 30% of Ireland's total exports. This move followed months of tense negotiations, with the US aiming to address what it called persistent trade imbalances with the European Union. For Ireland, the stakes are enormous. In 2024, Irish pharmaceutical exports to the US were valued at nearly €50 billion, representing a critical pillar of the Irish economy and supporting over 30,000 high-skilled jobs nationwide. The deal marked a significant shift in US policy, targeting Ireland's key export sector. While the EU suspended retaliatory tariffs to avoid escalation, deep divisions persisted among member states about the best path forward. Germany and France openly criticized the agreement, calling it weak, especially regarding car tariffs, which remained largely untouched. German car exports to the US, worth over €20 billion annually, were left vulnerable to future disputes. Ultimately, the deal is more a ceasefire than a lasting peace. Key issues like digital services taxes and agricultural quotas remain unresolved, leaving the transatlantic relationship on uncertain ground. For Ireland, the uncertainty is acute. Economic forecasts predict a potential 10% drop in pharmaceutical exports to the US in 2025, threatening thousands of jobs and billions in revenue as established trade rules are rewritten. The new environment has created a sense of dread in Dublin's business community, with many fearing a return to recession-era hardship if the situation worsens. The deal's impact on Ireland's economy is already profound and unsettling. With the pharmaceutical sector under threat and broader economic uncertainty looming, Ireland faces one of its most serious economic challenges in decades. What do you think about the new US-EU trade deal? Comment down below with your thoughts. President Trump announced a Section 232 investigation into pharmaceutical imports, with Ireland directly in the crosshairs. This investigation, typically reserved for national security concerns, marked a dramatic escalation in US trade policy. Trump proposed tariffs escalating up to 250% on Irish pharmaceutical exports. Ireland is the largest exporter of pharmaceuticals to the US, accounting for over $50 billion in annual trade, nearly half of Ireland's total exports. This threat strikes at the heart of Ireland's economic model, which relies on attracting multinational corporations with low taxes and access to the EU market. Pharmaceuticals alone make up 39% of Ireland's total exports, and US firms employ over 50,000 people in the sector. A 250% tariff would make Irish manufacturing for US export unviable overnight. Analysts estimate that such tariffs could wipe out up to 3% of Ireland's GDP and threaten tens of thousands of high-value jobs. The rhetoric from Washington painted Ireland as a rival, not a partner. Irish officials scrambled to respond, warning of a potential trade war and the collapse of decades of economic cooperation. Ireland is now seen by some in the US as exploiting the system, using low taxes to attract American companies and profits. This perception risks undermining the economic relationship that has fueled Ireland's growth since the 1990s. The threat is an existential crisis for Ireland's economy. Economists warn that a prolonged trade conflict could push Ireland into recession, with unemployment rising and foreign investment drying up. Ireland's reliance on US firms, who account for 70% of its corporate tax revenue, has become a vulnerability. The country's famed Celtic tiger model is now under direct threat from US policy shifts. The future of Ireland's economic model is at stake. With the US as its largest trading partner and source of investment, Ireland faces a stark choice: adapt quickly or risk economic upheaval on a scale not seen since the financial crisis. A 250% tariff on pharmaceuticals would dismantle Ireland's economic structure. US firms would likely relocate, erasing tax advantages. This would lead to job losses and economic contraction. The tech sector would also face new political risks. Ireland's reputation as a stable business environment would be damaged. The threat is a clear and present danger to Ireland's success. Pharmaceuticals account for over 50% of Ireland's exports, contributing significantly to its GDP growth. Economists predict a potential 3% drop in GDP if tariffs are imposed. The agricultural sector, though smaller, would also suffer from reduced exports. The government would need to implement emergency measures to stabilize the economy. International trade relations would be strained, complicating future negotiations. Public unrest could rise as citizens face job losses and economic uncertainty. The overall impact would be a significant downturn in Ireland's economic activity, affecting all sectors. Let us know in the comments how you think tariffs could impact the Irish economy. If US tariffs were imposed, Ireland could face a surge in unemployment, with estimates suggesting up to 150,000 jobs at risk, nearly 6% of the total workforce. The unemployment rate, which currently stands at just over 4%, could double or even triple, echoing the darkest days of the 2008 financial crisis. US firms directly employ over 210,000 people in Ireland, about 15% of the private sector workforce. Indirectly, these companies support an additional 140,000 jobs through suppliers and service providers. Widespread layoffs would ripple through the economy, affecting families and communities nationwide. Corporate tax revenue is a cornerstone of Ireland's public finances, with multinational companies contributing over €10 billion annually, more than 20% of total tax receipts. A sudden exodus of US firms could slash this revenue by half, creating a budget deficit of up to €5 billion. To fill the gap, the government would likely impose austerity measures, cutting spending on healthcare, education and social welfare. Public services would suffer and vulnerable groups would be hit hardest. The economy could contract by as much as 6% in a single year, according to some forecasts, potentially a deeper recession than 2008. Consumer spending would collapse, and business confidence would evaporate. The property market, already sensitive to global shocks, could see prices fall by 20% or more. Real estate transactions would stall, and mortgage defaults could rise sharply, undermining banks and household wealth. With limited opportunities at home, emigration could surge again. During the last recession, over 300,000 people left Ireland in search of work. History could repeat itself, draining the country of its young talent and ambition. The nation's future would hang in the balance. Beyond the economic numbers, the social fabric of Ireland would be tested, families under strain, communities divided, and a generation facing uncertainty. The stakes could not be higher. Despite the threat, Ireland has financial resources to cushion the impact. Budget surpluses provide a buffer to absorb revenue loss. In 2022, Ireland reported a budget surplus of €5 billion, a significant cushion against economic shocks. Relocating pharma plants is complex and costly, buying time. The pharmaceutical sector, which accounts for over 50% of Ireland's exports, is deeply entrenched in the local economy. US firms plan to continue investing despite the threat. In 2021, US companies invested over $444 billion in Ireland, underscoring their long-term commitment. The US pharma lobby may oppose damaging tariffs. The industry employs over 30,000 people in Ireland, making it a significant stakeholder in trade discussions. Ireland's EU membership offers leverage in trade disputes. The EU's collective bargaining power can be a formidable force in negotiations. The EU's solidarity provides a diplomatic shield. Ireland benefits from the EU's unified stance on trade policies and disputes. Ireland is not alone in facing this existential threat. The EU's support is crucial in navigating these turbulent times. The nation's strengths offer hope for navigating the crisis. Ireland's tech sector, which grew by 15% in 2021, is a beacon of resilience and innovation. Ireland must adapt to survive in a changing global landscape. Diversifying trade partners and investing in emerging sectors are key strategies for future stability. Ireland stands at a crossroads, facing a pivotal challenge to its economic sovereignty. The nation's GDP, which reached €425 billion in 2023, is heavily influenced by foreign direct investment, over 70% of which comes from the United States. The era of prosperity built on US investment is at risk, with over 180,000 Irish jobs directly tied to American multinationals. Tariff threats expose Ireland's dependence on a single partner. Nearly 30% of Irish exports go to the US, making the economy vulnerable to sudden policy shifts. Scenario analysis reveals that a 10% US tariff on Irish goods could reduce Ireland's GDP growth by up to 1.5% annually, while a full-scale trade war could cost tens of thousands of jobs. Even modest changes in US policy could trigger significant economic shocks, affecting everything from pharmaceuticals to tech exports. However, Ireland's robust financial reserves, over €30 billion in the National Treasury Management Agency, provide a buffer to weather short-term storms. EU membership offers a powerful shield in negotiations, granting access to a market of 450 million people and collective bargaining power. The crisis may catalyze necessary economic changes. Policy recommendations include expanding trade with the EU and Asia, investing in indigenous innovation, and supporting SMEs to reduce reliance on multinationals. Diversification and innovation are key. Increasing R&D spending, currently at 1.2% of GDP, below the EU average, can build resilience and foster new growth sectors like green energy and advanced manufacturing. The fate of the Celtic tiger depends on adaptation and survival. With strategic foresight, risk management, and bold policy action, Ireland can navigate uncertainty and emerge stronger than before. If you enjoyed this deep dive, like and subscribe to Smarter Brains for more engaging explorations into breaking news, politics, sociology, economics, and social policy. And don't forget, share your predictions for Ireland's future in the comments below.